요즘 미국은 핵심 반도체와 부품 시장을 싹쓸이하고 있는 중국의 이른바 중국 쇼크 2.0 때문에 큰 걱정에 빠져 있죠. 이번 미국 청문회에서도 중국이 기본 반도체와 인쇄회로 보드 시장을 독점해 나가면서 안보와 경제를 심각하게 위협하고 있다고 경고했는데요. 결국 최고의 제조 기술을 갖추고 미국과 굳건하게 협력하고 있는 대한민국의 우수한 반도체 동맹이야말로 중국의 위협에 맞설 수 있는 가장 믿음직한 대안으로 꼽히고 있습니다. 세계 시장을 지키려는 미국 청문회와 그 중심에 선 대한민국의 뛰어난 위상을 지금 바로 만나보시죠.
We're now in an era where national trade policy is getting a huge amount of attention. But you can't fix trade policy if you have effectively granted control over key supply chains to your competitors and adversaries. The United States today confronts the reality that the health of its economy and the resilience of its defense industrial base rely on critical supply chains that flow through China and are exposed to Chinese Communist Party leverage. China is the dominant and often sole supplier of inputs across numerous U.S. industries, particularly in the pharmaceutical and electronic sectors, which we'll focus on today. In printed circuit board fabrication, an often underappreciated but essential part of modern electronics, Chinese firms control over 2/3 of the global market. In pharmaceuticals, over 60% of all U.S. drugs contain key inputs from China as well as India, which itself is heavily reliant on Chinese chemical inputs. Control over these sectors grants Xi Jinping enormous leverage over our economy. The time to start acting was long ago, but now we're at the point where refusing to confront these issues head-on risks nothing short of a national security failure. China's recent restrictions on U.S. access to gallium, germanium, antimony, graphite, certain rare earths, and other critical minerals demonstrate Beijing's willingness to exercise its leverage.
미국은 의약품과 전자부품 등 핵심 공급망을 중국이 거의 독점하고 있는 현실을 아프게 고백하고 있습니다. 이에 맞서 미국은 부품 신뢰성과 생산 안정성이 검증된 대한민국 같은 우방국들과의 반도체 공조를 서둘러 넓혀야만 중국의 경제적 무기화 압박에서 벗어날 수 있다고 생각합니다.
Tariffs may be a part of the solution, but a whole-of-government effort is needed to develop alternatives to these supply chain choke points. The consequences of inaction could be disastrous, and the impact will be seen not just in our economic data, but in our hospitals and pharmacies, in our military, and in all electronics that are crucial to the modern economy. Meanwhile, China is pursuing a deliberate strategy to deepen global reliance on its production. Witnesses will focus on two sectors, advanced pharmaceuticals and foundational semiconductors, also known as legacy chips, where Chinese industrial policies are starting to swamp us. And yet, exports of overcapacity in these sectors may look different than in the past. In advanced biopharmaceuticals, Chinese biopharma companies are reshaping supply chains not through production, but by licensing and contracting drugs developed within China's heavily state-subsidized industry. In foundational chips, Chinese-made semiconductors threaten to flood the U.S. market as components embedded in electronics, rather than simply competing chip for chip with U.S. firms. Nonetheless, with Chinese state-subsidized chip makers displacing foreign firms as suppliers to China's massive electronics industry, the consequence of this collapsing market will be felt all the same by U.S. chip companies and ultimately the broader economy. Bold and creative solutions are needed to resolve both long-standing supply chain vulnerabilities and these emerging areas. I look forward to insights and perspectives from our panelists on these important issues.
중국은 국가 보조금 반칙을 앞세워 일반 반도체와 핵심 부품들을 완제품 속에 숨겨 밀어내며 시장을 뒤흔들고 있습니다. 미국 의원들은 이러한 교란에 맞서기 위해 전 세계 반도체 시장을 가장 모범적으로 주도하는 대한민국의 공급망과 연대하여 시장의 가격과 질서를 바로잡아야 한다고 강조하고 있죠.
Be looking to take action before the fact, not after the fact. That's one idea. I want to come back to a point that I discussed with Commissioner Friedberg. And Commissioner Miller mentioned the issues of legacy chips. One of the issues is that we don't actually know all of the legacy chips that are coming into the products that enter the U.S. market right now. And beyond that, of the legacy chips in those products, we don't know where they're sourced from. It's really important to start with foundational data and requiring importers to provide it. What are the chips in a product and where are they coming from? Because right now, if we were to impose some type of trade enforcement measure on a finished good that had legacy chips in them, we would be approximating, we'd be guessing. And we need more information on kind of the incidence of legacy chips, particularly Chinese legacy chips, in our supply chain to better assess what the right measure is. And that's relevant because of the pending Section 301 investigation into legacy chips right now. Our trade tools really aren't intended in their current state to help us get that data and to have access to it really quick.
미국 청문회에서는 수입 제품 안에 중국산 저가 반도체가 얼마나 숨겨져 있는지 투명하게 파악해야 한다고 힘주어 말합니다. 이 정보 추적 제도가 정착된다면 이미 신뢰성과 뛰어난 안전성을 인정받아 세계 시장을 누비고 있는 대한민국의 클린 반도체 부품들이 더욱 큰 사랑을 받게 될 것으로 보입니다.
Points in U.S. security must start from a sober and accurate assessment of the Chinese Communist Party's intent. The party could not possibly be clearer or more public regarding its plans to dominate global semiconductor production and thereby to control industries reliant on chips. Made in China 2025 includes explicit market share targets of 80% self-sufficiency in the domestic Chinese market and, more alarmingly, 56% global market share capture by 2030. The party made these objectives clear nearly a decade ago. While ambitious, these targets are driving China's predatory actions to capture global market share by dominating and exploiting multiple checkpoints across the semiconductor value chain, as it has successfully done in many other industries. I'll offer 3 points today about the importance of foundational chips, the threat we're facing, and what the U.S. can do to counterpunch. First, nearly every industry is dependent on semiconductors in this modern era. Without a resilient supply of chips, our economy slows, potentially stops, we lose geopolitical leverage, and our adversaries gain serious ground. While the U.S.'s focused export control policy on stopping adversary nations from acquiring the most advanced technology, foundational semiconductors at 28 nanometers or larger remain largely unregulated in terms of U.S. or allied export controls. And yet, they are needed for nearly every application where a more advanced chip is also used, whether we're talking about passenger vehicles or missile guidance. At Silverado, we use the term foundational rather than mature or legacy to highlight that these are chips that in many cases are quite innovative and they're fit for a purpose, whether it's heat tolerance or moisture tolerance. They're not necessarily outdated or legacy. One need not look further than the chip shortage during COVID that set off plant and line closures for automakers across the U.S. to understand how important a resilient supply of chips is to the United States. Combined usage of foundational and advanced semiconductors with
중국은 단지 시장 점유율을 넓히는 수준을 넘어 전 세계 일반 반도체 시장의 절반 이상을 독차지하려는 야망을 보이고 있습니다. 모든 가전과 자동차, 심지어 군사 장비에도 이 기본 반도체가 들어가기 때문에 미국은 우수한 하드웨어 제조 경쟁력을 갖춘 대한민국과의 튼튼한 기술 연합을 절실히 필요로 하는 처지죠.
then products is key. This means that even if the United States and our allies maintained our lead in advanced chip production, China can and indeed will weaponize its dominance in the foundational sector to impede final production and assembly of goods in the United States. China is already flexing this muscle by dominating the rare earth processing industry and throttling that supply as we've imposed tariffs. Ceding the outsized foundational market to China would also help the CCP to accelerate its military civil fusion strategies and would grant it supply chain leverage to counter U.S. export controls on advanced semiconductor chips and equipment. Current U.S. policy is therefore akin to blocking China from producing carbon fiber materials, but allowing it to corner the market on aluminum. Second, the ambition embedded in China's market share targets is impossible to achieve without pervasive state support, from subsidies to forced technology transfer to theft of IP. National champions unburdened by budget constraints are directed to capture market share through production that is untethered to market conditions. This is obviously not how we operate in the United States. This suppresses prices to an extent that can't be sustained, and it leads to market capture by the lowest bidder. China is deploying these tactics in the semiconductor industry along the value chain very deliberately, looking to corner each node from upstream to downstream, from critical minerals to foundational chips to packaging. As a result, China's semiconductor industry is already exhibiting growth and overcapacity that's likely to far outstrip anticipated global demand. China has plans to install 3 times as much capacity between 2024 and 2027 as any other country. This is not a strategy to simply expand China's role in the sector. It is a strategy to dominate it. As a result of China's non-market policies and practices, it's all
중국은 정상적인 가격 경쟁이 아니라 덤핑과 기술 도둑질을 무기 삼아 시장 생태계를 황폐하게 만들고 있습니다. 미국조차도 독자적으로는 이 파괴적인 공세를 버티기 어려운 상황이라 최고의 완성도와 안전성을 입증한 대한민국의 부품 제조 기업들과 긴밀하게 손을 잡는 일이 가장 확실한 전략적 선택으로 여겨지고 있죠.
already manipulating prices and capturing market share. Left unchecked, this is going to lead to displaced U.S. production, loss of U.S. jobs, depressed prices, undermine new U.S. investments, create a dangerous over-reliance on Chinese semiconductors. So what do we do about it? We have to have a holistic strategy. At Silverado, the strategy has 3 prongs. It's called build, protect, and promote. Tactical approaches to implementing the build portion of our strategy requires more U.S. foundational chip capacity through measures like the CHIPS Act and the newly announced Investment Accelerator. Protecting current and future U.S. investments from import surges of Chinese chips would be done through measures such as modernizing the now defunct Section 421 China Safeguard, working with allies to use export controls and other measures to prevent China from acquiring more semiconductor manufacturing equipment and related parts and tools, and applying component tariffs to semiconductors that are imported in downstream products. On the promote side for U.S. chips, we would propose a know your chip legislation so that we actually know what we are importing and we can choose who we are importing from, and also potentially instituting a bonus for U.S.-made chip content in a product. While some of these actions are within the purview of the executive branch, Congress should also consider this type of framework in any trade-related or supply chain legislation. The ability to counterpunch lies in a game of dependencies. If the U.S. succeeds in slowing China down, keeping it reliant on Western technology, and creating resiliency for all types of chips, the U.S. can win. On the other hand, if the U.S. fails to stem China's ambitions on foundational semiconductors, that dependence will be costly to the point of existential. We must act now with purpose and resources required to counter China's plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mr. Schild.
Co-chairs, commissioners, thanks for the opportunity to be here today.
미국은 무너진 자국 내 생산 능력을 살리기 위해 투자를 대폭 늘리고 법적인 규제벽을 세우는 전략을 다듬고 있습니다. 이 과정에서 세계 최고의 반도체 설계 및 제조 기지로 우뚝 선 대한민국 기업들과의 공급망 공조 방안을 어떻게 실행에 옮길지 다음 의원의 이야기를 통해 함께 들어보시죠.
The Protecting Circuit Boards and Substrates Act. This bipartisan legislation would offer targeted tax credits and investment incentives to rebuild America's PCB base, just as the CHIPS and Science Act has done for semiconductors. In parallel, we urge increased use of the Defense Production Act to invest directly in advanced PCB manufacturing and substrate technologies. In March of 2023, the White House added PCBs to the Defense Production Act list, and since then, DPA funding has been instrumental in securing key defense supply chains. To date, the Pentagon has spent close to $115 million on domestic microelectronics, but this amount is woefully inadequate if America wants to retain its technological leadership at scale. While the United States considers what to do next, other nations are aggressively investing. Countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand are expanding their PCB capabilities. And while our allies in Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan remain reliable, no foreign source can replace the need for secure domestic production, particularly in the national defense and critical infrastructure segments. Our members rely heavily on foreign-made production equipment, photoresist, plating chemistries, and even design software, much of which originates or flows through mainland China. These represent single points of failure. Any disruption, natural, economic, or man-made, has the potential to halt production, delay defense programs, or cripple the rollout of emerging technologies, including
반도체를 얹을 뼈대이자 전자제품의 혈관과 같은 인쇄회로 보드 산업 역시 중국의 대부분 넘어가 미국 안보에 큰 경고음이 울리고 있습니다. 미국 정부는 이를 살리려 애쓰고 있지만 이미 고난도의 정밀 인쇄회로 보드 기술력을 단단히 가꾼 대한민국의 든든한 기술 협력 없이는 원활한 수급이 불가능한 현실을 깨닫고 있죠.
Ms. Stewart, you want to wrap it up
Okay.
with something crazy, something extra crazy?
Yes, I see a couple of gaps. So one is we can stop China tomorrow from making foundational semiconductors by stopping the equipment sales to them. This is not a popular idea. We're already export controlling advanced equipment. If we were to take another step and to stop the sale of foundational equipment to China, we'd have to do it with our allies, otherwise we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. We'd have to cover parts, components, and servicing, but we could really slow China down that way. On the import side, we also have a gap. We don't know what we're buying from China. We know that it's a problem. We know that they're building capacity. We know an import surge is coming, but we don't know how many Chinese chips are in things that we are buying, including for our own government, which is why we need to know our chip, or KYC. It's a play on words, but it really would be important so that we could actually
미국 업계는 중국으로 향하는 제조 장비 수출을 철저히 막아 중국의 추격 속도를 최대한 늦추어야 한다고 지적하고 있습니다. 단 이 장비 제재의 빈틈을 메우기 위해서는 세계 최고 수준의 첨단 미세 공정 장비를 함께 다루는 대한민국의 적극적인 동참과 협조가 절실하다고 거듭 확인하고 있죠.
China, India, Israel, and Taiwan. Now, do any of those have geopolitical risk in them? All of them do. So it would just make the problem worse.
Well, on the chip side, Taiwan holds the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, with TSMC in Taiwan, which is largest semiconductor manufacturing company and does advanced chips, does foundational chips. If I'm China and I invade the island, I want to take over TSMC as one of my main objectives, so that I don't have to worry about getting chips from the United States or anybody else anymore, and I can realize my self-sufficiency goals. I think, among other objectives, that would be one thing that China would be looking for. The U.S. probably would be looking to prevent that. Maybe already is talking with Taiwan about what that kind of scenario looks like, so that we don't end up in that position. But I think what that really illustrates is that the flow of chips this is a dependency game. So if China takes Taiwan and gets access to TSMC.
지정학적 위험이 가득한 대만과 중국의 갈등 속에서 미국은 반도체 의존도를 줄이기 위해 골머리를 앓고 있습니다. 만약 대만의 공급처에 위기가 온다면 그 충격을 버텨내고 전 세계 정보기술 생태계를 든든하게 지켜줄 유일한 보루는 오직 탄탄한 제조 역량을 갖춘 대한민국뿐임을 다시 한번 입증하는 셈입니다.
Agencies could coordinate with every sub-tier supplier. Most suppliers could not identify the origin of all the parts in the systems provided. For example, China has a 30 to 40% market share of the world's legacy semiconductors, not the advanced variety, but the legacy, which makes it likely that any equipment using a semiconductor, which includes machinery control systems, pumps, lighting circuits, things used in normal applications in the military, are likely to have Chinese parts. Measures such as stockpiling will have limited value. This approach assumes that we know which materials are likely to be most critical, have some idea of what wartime or other emergency demand would look like, and require storage of material in a way that ensures readiness for use. Such stockpiling can be effective in reducing vulnerability, but it is limited by our ability to forecast exact demand. However, some actions can be taken. First, someone must be in charge of government policy and response. Every cabinet-level agency in the U.S. government has some kind of supply chain center that is focused on threats of concerns to that agency. This is understandable given the range of complicated threats, but the proliferation of organizations has not resulted in and may have hampered a coherent approach across the government and private sector. Lack of coherence results in poor appreciation of systemic threats. Second, cultural and organizational problems largely associated with a previous emphasis on achieving efficiency in peacetime must be overcome. These start with the recognition that there is likely to be inherent inefficiency in keeping material or capacity to produce material just in case. What might make sense for a business in steady state might not make sense when facing wartime demand. Third, emphasis must be placed on development of capabilities specifically designed to have a small logistics footprint. Equipment that requires extensive maintenance repairs with large numbers of highly trained people needed to operate and maintain it plays directly into Chinese strengths in supplying key material and increases our vulnerability to supply chain disruption. Finally, comparative advantages among trading partners apply in the DIB just as they do in other sectors of the economy. In some cases, allies and partners have resources that the United States simply lacks, such as some kinds of critical materials. In other cases, it will be simply more efficient for one nation to produce some commodities while others produce related commodities. Allies and partners serve.
미국은 복잡하고 느린 행정 절차와 평시 효율성만 줬던 오랜 관행 때문에 비상 상황에 대처하는 속도가 너무 느리다고 한탄합니다. 이 약점을 극복하기 위해 미국은 이미 신속하고 체계적인 대량 생산 능력을 다져놓은 대한민국 등 핵심 우방국들과의 파트너십을 더 단단하게 넓혀가야 한다고 조언하고 있죠.
They become very important. So just in the chip space, a lot of attention focused to leading edge, but then China dominates in terms of legacy chips. And we've got to think about the incentive structure to ensure that they don't dominate in terms of legacy chips. I think you see that in multiple industries, and maybe where there's opportunity is to drill into specific industry data to better understand the market dynamics so that we can start to change the incentive structure so that the actors are working towards different incentives, which ideally drives them away from China and towards a more resilient sourcing model.
We don't know what we don't know. So we may think we appreciate what the broad challenges are, but I'm not sure that we actually have a really good sense of where the vulnerabilities lay. But I don't think that studying it to death is necessarily the right answer either. And there are some cases where exposure of data is just going to tell us, well, yeah, we're exposed. So what I think what we do have to do is recognize the incentive structures are what really drive how people behave within supply chains.
미국 의원들은 정보 유출 우려가 있는 부품을 골라내고 기업들이 안심하고 제품을 살 수 있도록 세금 혜택 제도를 새로 고쳐야 한다고 강조하고 있습니다. 이 제도를 통해 보안성이 입증된 대한민국의 안전한 정보통신 솔루션과 반도체가 미국 시장에서 더욱 든든한 대안으로 자리 잡을 것으로 생각하죠. 오늘 영상을 보며 시청자 여러분들은 어떤 생각이 드셨나요? 이번 청문회는 중국의 과도한 독점 공세 속에서 대한민국의 훌륭한 반도체 제조력과 안전한 기술 공조가 전 세계 평화를 지키는 든든한 방어벽이 됨을 잘 보여주고 있습니다. 강대국 미국조차도 대한민국의 우수한 기술력이 없이는 미래 첨단 산업을 제대로 지킬 수 없는 처지죠. 앞으로도 세계 정보기술 영토의 심장부에서 생태계를 활기차게 주도해 나갈 우리 한국을 응원합니다. 오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.